Hey guys, how's it going? OliPlays here and welcome back to the FM Scout YouTube channel. Today we've got another Leagues in Focus for you and we're going to be looking at the Danish Super Liga. Before we get into that though, I'd just like to point you in the direction of my own personal channel where I'm currently doing saves with Red Star Belgrade and Swansea City. It would mean a lot to me if after we're done here, you have a look at it, maybe you'll like it. If you like it, why not drop a subscribe? Anyhow, let's kick it off with the league format for the Danish Super Liga. It's a weird and wonderful format. It's pretty complicated, but I actually quite like it once I got my head around it. So, it's 14 teams, play each other twice, so that's 26 games in the regular season. After that, the league splits into the top 6 and the bottom 8. Now once it's split, you play every team in your group twice. And then after that, if you're top of the top 6, you get Champions League football. Second place, Europa League football. And third place, you go into the Euro playoff final. Now, we'll cover that later, so just keep that in mind. However, there is a thing where if the winner of the Danish Cup is in the top 3, they go straight to the Europa League. So then the fourth place team would go into the playoff. Now let's get on to the bottom 8. Well, the bottom 8 is split into 2 groups of 4. Again, they play each other twice. So that's a further 6 games if you're in these groups. If you're in the top 2 places of the group, well, you go through to the European playoff. Just bear with me. You might have to go through this a couple of times just to get the idea of it, but we'll get to the European playoff. And then, if you're in the bottom 2, you go to the relegation playoff, which we'll also get to. So let's start off with the relegation playoff. Well, all the games in the relegation playoff are across 2 legs. 4th place in Group A plays 3rd place in Group B, and vice versa. Then the winners go through. They play each other. The winner of that match, you're safe. The loser of that match, where you have to go through to another match where you play 3rd place in Division 1. Again, it's 2 legs. Winner of that gets a spot in the Premier Division. Now, if you lose that first game, you go into a loser's match, where if you lose that match, you're just relegated. And if you win that match, you still got to do a playoff against 2nd place in Division 1. So it's a really tough road if you lose that first game. Then, on a slightly more positive note, we've got the European playoff. Again, 2 legs. You've got 1st place from Group B playing 2nd place from Group A, vice versa. Then, if you lose there, that's it. You're done for the season. You secured your place, but you're not going to be playing in Europe. The winners then go on to the so-called semi-final. If you win that, well, you go through to the final, where you play what I've put as C3, which is the Championship Group 3rd place, or potentially 4th place. You then play them over 2 legs for a place in Europe. If you haven't got that, I suggest you go through, have another look at it, or look it up. It's pretty complicated, but I think very interesting. Now we'll take a look at what I think is the key derby. I'll admit I forgot to do this for Sweden, but for Denmark it's the new firm derby, which is between Brøndby and Copenhagen. And I believe the name is a play on the old firm derby, which is obviously Celtic and Rangers. Now, instead of just immediately doing the tier list, I'm going to do it a bit differently for this episode. And hopefully in future episodes, I think I'm going to go with this. What I'm going to do with the tier list is I'm using the training facilities, the youth facilities, the transfer budget, and the media prediction, as opposed to the media prediction. And I've got a scoring system, and that's how the tier list is going to work. So we'll go into training facilities, youth facilities, and transfer budget, and then you'll see the tier list. So we'll kick that off with training facilities. It's not looking very good for Denmark. Really isn't. No greens here. But then again, average is the lowest. If you don't know, there's 10 different types of training facilities. Impressive is the 4th best, and average is the 6th best. So they're pretty consistently average, I suppose. You've got Brøndby, AAB, Copenhagen, Midtjylland, and Nordjylland. I'm going to butcher that one. As per usual, if I butcher any names, I'm really sorry. I definitely didn't just have to pause my recording to look for what the actual name of that club was. Apologies if I've insulted anyone. So let's move on to the youth facilities. Well, there's a much larger range here. Immediately you can see you got 3 greens, you got EFB, Lyngby and Midtjylland. They're all great. And you've got AAB and Brøndby. They're good. Surprisingly for me, Copenhagen just have adequate youth facilities. Now, I always think of Copenhagen as the big club in Denmark, at least at the moment. So for me, that's really surprising. You got AGF and Silkeborg. They're both poor, which is the worst type of youth facilities you can have. So in the end, Denmark's still struggling on the facilities front. And that brings me on to a new graphic that I made, which is a comparison of the facilities for all the leagues we've covered. So what I've done is I've given each level of facility a number, 1 being the best and 10 being the worst. And I've added them all up in the league, then divided them by the amount of teams. So we've got the average. So you can see here, Sweden tops the average training, top the average youth. So they're topping the average overall. They're the best facilities we've seen so far. Serbia's in second. And then Denmark's bottom. And really, their training facilities, on average, they're good. But their youth facilities, generally, they're appalling. And that means they just miss out on going above the Serbian Super Liga. And then let's move on to transfer budget. Well, we've gone for the top 10 this time. Copenhagen, as I said, in my eyes, the big club in Denmark, at least at the moment, big transfer budget difference. They got 3.5 million. Nordsjælland, 867,000 in second place. Brøndby not too far behind. Aalborg, Sonderski, OB. You can read them all. And then Silkeborg just coming in at 10th. So then, what does this mean for the tier list? Well, there's the media prediction. I haven't decided on a graphic for that, so that's why it's not in the video. Hopefully for the next episode I'll have sorted that. Tier A, we've got Copenhagen, Brøndby, AAB and Nordsjælland. In my eyes, these are the teams that are going to be fighting in that top 6. And personally, I'd put Midtjylland in the tier A, but in Football Manager, they have no transfer budget, so that's how they've ended up in the B tier. You could get them into the A tier. They're just financially a little bit shaky. They're joined in the B tier by Randers FC, Sonderski and OB, which I think is Odense. Again, sorry if I've butchered any names or got something wrong. Tier C got AGF, EFB and Viborg. I'm sorry if I'm using abbreviations. I'm just not sure about teams and I don't want to insult anyone. Then tier D, we've got Silkeborg, Horsens and Lyngby. Now, I know Lyngby in real life, they're actually in 3rd place. So they're doing really well. But if we look at Football Manager, you really don't expect them to be up there in 3rd place. So fair play to them in real life. And I'd just like to clarify this because there was a bit of issues in the Swedish one. This video is purely based on Football Manager. Teams may be doing really well in real life, but according to FM, at the start of the season, these teams weren't expected to be there. So if they're there, fair play to them, well done them, but we're looking at Football Manager. And welcome to another new feature on Leagues of Focus. For a change, we've got the top 5 prospects. Now, obviously there might be other prospects that people are looking at. I've used the editor to find the players with the best potential, and then I've kind of stuck with players that are below 22. So we'll kick it off with Mikael Anderson. He's a 17-year-old, which I find kind of crazy. He's playing at Midtjylland. He'll play on the left wing. He'll play on the right wing. He can do a job in the middle. He's not terrible at striker. Is currently valued at 200 grand. Stats that stand out at the moment: flair, dribbling, acceleration, That's the kind of winger he's going to be. Obviously, he's very young, so look for these stats to improve. Look out for this guy. Secondly, we've got Benjamin Verbic. This guy, 22-year-old Slovenian, is at Copenhagen, valued at $1 million. Left wing, attacking mid, decent on the right wing, and might be able to do a job at striker and central mid. He's another player that can play all over the park from the midfield up. He looks a similar style player to Anderson. He's got that acceleration, he's got that flair, he's got that dribbling, but he just looks a lot more developed. He's got his pace up to 14, agility, long shots, technique. His finishing and first touch, they're at 13, they're not horrendous. Vision and passing as well. So he's more of the complete player than Anderson. Thirdly, we've got Robert Skov, 20-year-old Danish prospect from Silkeborg, so it's not at one of the bigger clubs. You might be able to get him for cheaper. He's a right winger by trade. Likes to play in the middle, attacking mid or central mid. Looking at him, he's a bit taller than the others. He's got that acceleration, he's got that dribbling, he's got that flair that you need. So we're looking at similar sorts of players. He's a good free kick taker, can take a long shot, technique. Again, very similar to Verbic, but a little bit younger. You might be able to get him a little bit cheaper. Next up, it's Edison Flores. Again, attacking midfielder. A little less versatile. He's only going to be playing in the attacking mid slots, left or right. He's another player with great acceleration, flair, dribbling. He's a corner specialist with 16 corners, 15 passing, 15 vision. He can ping a ball. Edison Flores is valued at $1 million. It's like one of the bigger teams, so it might be a little bit more expensive than Skov. And finally, we've got the player who I believe is probably the best prospect coming out of the Danish league. It's the 18-year-old Michael Juland. Same style of player again. He prefers to be slightly deeper than the other players we've seen. He's more of a left mid instead of left winger, or right mid instead of right winger. He can play in the centre. As an 18-year-old, we can compare him to Anderson, but he is a more well-rounded Anderson. He's only a year older. He's got that flair, he's got acceleration that we've seen in all these players. Great passer of the ball. Again, work rate's not been too great in these players, but they're youngsters. You can tutor that into them. And that's Michael Juland. He's only valued at 275 grand, so he's one of the cheaper options. As I said earlier, Midtjylland, financial trouble. You might be able to pry him away for a really cut price deal. And finally, let's have a look at the media predicted best 11, just to give you an idea of how good the players are in this league. If I had to sum it up in one word, it would be Copenhagen. You'll see why in a second. Let's kick it off with Robin Olsen, 26-year-old keeper, 6'6". He's a giant. He could improve. Be a decent pickup. Ludwig Augustinsson on the left looks a great player. Unfortunately, he's joining Bremen at the end of the first season, so you're not going to be able to get him in the first season. He's going to be really good when he's older. And we've got Erik Johansson, 6'4", not too slow, looks very well rounded, good mentals. Matthias Jorgensen, same boat, 3.7 million, great physicals, very quick centre back, great mentals. Peter Ankersen, which makes it a complete Copenhagen back four and goalkeeper. 25-year-old, very quick, very aggressive, looks very solid all round, can play on either side. Tim Sparv, the first player to break up the Copenhagen domination. 29-year-old Finnish guy, very determined, great mentals and physicals. It'd be a good bit of experience to get into your team. Back to our regularly scheduled programme. Uros Matic, another Copenhagen player, 1.4 million. Pretty well rounded, like most of the players are, but an advanced playmaker, something different from deep. On the left, got Yusuf Tutu, I'm pretty assuming that's how it's pronounced. Can play on the left, in the middle, a flair player, a pretty strong player, 6'2", 23 years old, has a decent bit of potential in him. Behind the striker, we've got Rasmus Falk, he can play any of those 3 attacking mid roles. First touch, dribbling, another flair player. There's a lot of them in Denmark. Kasper Kusk, I think he was once considered quite a good prospect. He was at AAB for a long time. Now he's joined Copenhagen. I'm sure there's some kind of bad blood there. Very high flair. Maybe he can resurrect his career. Finally up front, Federico Santander. Like the bank, he's a Paraguayan. Decently well-rounded. Very strong. Obviously a target man, being 6'2". But he's a target man with a good first touch. And he's going to cost 3 million. It's not a bad buy if that's what you're looking for. And that brings me to the end of another episode of Leagues in Focus. Next time I'm going to be covering the MLS. There's a lot of rules to go over in that one, so if you're not sure about them, you can find out next Tuesday. Before I go though, I'd just like to point you in the direction of the FM Scout website, fmscout.com, for tips, tricks, guides, all that kind of thing. Great website. I've been OliPlays. I'll see you next Tuesday. Goodbye.